Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yep. Hello.
Hey, hello.
Hello, Kifu. Yep.
Let's start. Last week I was still struggling with Python 3 migration and ONode tree implementation. It turns out it's kind of some leeway regarding to the
Hey,
um.
Ronan,
Is it
can you
me?
mute? I think it's Ronan.
Yes, Ronan, could you mute? There's some background noise on the side. Okay, that's better. Thank you. Last week I was just still struggling with ONode implementation, and it turns out there's some leeway regarding to the merge and split to choose the right pivot point to get the best performance regarding to the spatial and runtime performance. And I found that there's some existing literature on this area, like the prefix tree and the bit tree. And I think I need more time to find a optimal solution and which is flexible for future improvements. That's me. Oh, by the way, I think we probably need to walk through the short-term goals regarding to the Crimson project, as we moved to Trello recently, and we need to nail down the goals when we can the accomplishment. That's me. Chime.
Yeah, I just read most of the C code these days and get to understand more about the C design, and hope I can help on some tasks when you guys split the tasks. So, okay, not much updated, just read the code.
Thanks, Neha. Thanks to me. Neha, anything to share with that?
Hey, I'm here to just listen in and just follow up on the Trello that we created recently. I know some of us were not in the planning meeting. It happened last week. Just want to make sure everybody is on the same page. And if there are some items that we can identify as low-hanging fruits or things that nobody's working on in general, that any new contributors can just pick up and try to work on. So I guess that's something that we want to identify, but it doesn't need to happen today.
Later.
If you're breaking
Sorry,
up for me.
I missed the last words.
Yeah, I was just saying that I'm just here to just discuss that bit of it. It doesn't need to happen today, but in general, we'd like to identify some of those broad level items that probably more people can contribute towards.
Sure.
If it's worth adding a different label or something, like we have in our tracker, which is low hanging fruit, or something like any color coding or whatever works for everybody should be fine. I'd also like to hear what everybody else wants, thinks about this.
Yes, we can have a very quick sync up regarding to the low-hanging fruit and the text. We can work in parallel after the step. If necessary, we can schedule another meeting for understanding the details of the pending tasks.
Sure, sounds good.
Thank you. Ridek.
Hello. Last week I sent a small PR bringing support for burning for storing output buffers and return values inside pglog. Also the link. Right now I'm working on backfill. I've fixed on some kind of dead loop in handling of MOSD alive message, and now I wired up also the pgtemp orchestration. I'm investigating an issue. Actually, I'm working on the transition of primary to doing backfill. I have environment where I have a scenario. I'm working on a scenario when an empty primary joins the cluster, and it needs to get backfilled. However, it seems that I stuck busy in wait acting change state because should restart peering, and particularly doesn't identify the new OSD map as having a new interval. I'm investigating what's the reason for that. That's me.
Oh, by the way, regarding your PR, the PR to update the pglog, I'm still waiting for the green light from the performance test. It seems there's some regression. Not sure it's a false alarm.
Okay, I will take a look. By the way, I also created a Trello card for the submit transaction rework for the refactoring task.
Fantastic. Brennan.
Everybody, still working on rubbing. I have the state machine for the primary and the diagram which is sent to everybody. And thanks for the comments for those who made those. I will start with the other replicas diagram in the state machine soon, and we're trying to incorporate to create. What I plan for next week is to create an environment for testing for whatever code I write. Be able to create a scoping scenario and see how it goes. That's my plan for the next 2 weeks.
Thanks, Brennan. Sam?
Can you guys hear me? Okay. I've finished writing the code for the LBA tree split, merge, insert, remove, etc. So since that should give us a rough outline for the last piece, so I'm doubling back and writing unit tests for that, for the transaction manager, for the journal, and for the cache. And as I do that, I'll fill in missing methods that I haven't gotten around to implementing yet. This will probably take a couple of weeks. After that, I should have a PR ready for the LBA layer. That's it.
Sam, I just want to check out with you. So what's your backend of the LBA tree implementation? Is it touching the memory, or it's a kind of writing to the disk?
There's an interface that I will later implement to write to disk, but that's easy.
Okay, I see.
Like, I mean, it's in memory right now simply because I haven't bothered to write it, but the relevant methods are pretty much writing the read and write methods, or, writing to a disk. Not a lot to it.
Got it. Thanks.
I'm more worried about having unit tests at this time, though, so I'm going to do that later.
Copy that. Thanks, Sam. And Shehan.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. For the LBA tree, did I implement it in terms of needing to mutate fixed blocks and generate deltas and such? Is that what you mean?
Again,
What do you mean by in memory?
I missed.
By in memory, do you mean have I literally written the code that writes to disk, or did I write the LBA tree as though it were in memory? Is that what you
I
mean?
think it's
No, I wrote
just
the LBA tree as the code for the LBA tree is, well, I mean, modulo bug fixes and improvements is the same as it will be when there's an implementation of the interface that writes to disk. That part's identical. That is, it's using the layer immediately below the transaction manager to do what it needs to do. It's using the cast extent refs and it's doing all of that stuff.
okay. I just want to understand the extent of the implementation, or it's finalized the interface talking to the disk or not. So it's I think it's what it means. We are going to talk to the disk using abstract interface, which is identical to when it's talking to memory and to disk.
It would be better to say that I wrote an in-memory mock for the interface that writes to disk. The interface is designed for a disk. It's not designed for memory. Persistent memory will work differently.
Okay. That's what I want to understand. Thank you. Shehan.
Last week I was fixing some latest bugs in the Verilog-based recovery code, and I submitted a PR yesterday. And I'm now working on making the normal I/O and recovery operations mutually exclusive.
The object context read-write lock should already handle that, I believe.
Oh, I mean, when doing I/O, if the object is unreadable or backfilling or degraded, you have to wait for that.
I see what you mean. You mean adding the you okay? Yes, fair enough. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way,
that's
Shehan,
all for me.
have you got a chance to update the Trello board regarding your work in progress?
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah, I think I have added you to the Trello board as a member.
Yes, I saw it.
Put its things in Trello. Which column is related?
Is it related to what?
Is related to heartbeat features, like.
I think it's more related to infra, because OSD
okay.
sits on top of the heartbeat feature.
Okay, sure. I will add them later. So the first thing is last week I identified some missing features in the current heartbeat implementation, and I have implemented out of them in my current private branch, and I will send them out after the refactoring, the one connection PI is merged, I think. And another missing feature from Heartbeat is the consolidation of the peers update. It is controlled by the Heartbeat need update in the classic OSD. And the second part, I just
You were cut off.
Started. Sorry,
yeah,
I will paste the.
Fail to hear the second part. Could you repeat it?
Yeah, I just started to model the data structures discussed in the ONO tree. It's the flexible ONO tree. So my branch is here. This is modeling of the basic data structures, and I think I still need to take some look at the ButterFS B tree to understand the implementations of merge and split and other detailed implementations. That's all from me.
Thank you, Xin. And I think I just posted the URL in Trello. I would suggest that we walk through some of the Pacific cards to make sure that we are on the same page regarding to the milestones, to make sure that we at least finish the task we defined for Pacific. What do you think? The goal is to another goal of walking through these cards is to identify some low-hanging fruits for the new joiners of this project, because we are likely to have more hands in this project very soon.
Sure, sounds good to me.
I noticed the snapshot stuff is listed as for Pacific. I would question whether that's useful or helpful.
Yeah, I think Josh mentioned that to me, and he said that I think for RBD, that's going to be important if we want full RBD support in Pacific. So that's something we should probably discuss.
Define
Feasible
full
that
and define support.
I mean, I guess like we are aiming for replicated RBD workloads to be feature complete, at least tech previewed in Pacific, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just
worried
I'm
about the
just
definition of the word tech preview. So in the past, we've had customers use tech preview stuff. I don't think anything about Crimson will be customer ready by then.
Okay, so
perhaps a customer might be encouraged, like a really big one, might be encouraged to set it up and kick the tires, simply so that we can get really early feedback. But if it crashes, we'll be like, oh.
No, that's fine. I mean, yeah, that's totally okay, and we won't even encourage them to install it in production, right? But
yeah, I'm saying
there's
an intermediate step between benchmarking such that they don't call us when it crashes, at least not like without the expectation of a week or two of turnaround, and production. There's like a lot of room between those two things.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, exactly. So let's just brainstorm that idea in general. What does everybody think about snapshots in general? Is anybody working on it, or what? Or how do we feel about it?
So to be clear, I do intend to include the relevant bits in CStore, but given a choice between debugging snapshots, which will take a really long time, it's just hard to implement. Like snap trimming alone is a fair amount of work. So there's a lot of administrative stuff in the OSD that doesn't really directly contribute to the mission of Crimson. That may not be as urgent as making sure Crimson basically works and is fast. And that is the value I think we have to demonstrate by Pacific. It's that for a straight line workload, we need to correctly and properly do recovery and I/O. Yeah. And snapshots are like, it's a valid thing to work on. And by all means, if we have the bandwidth, I think we should try to attack it. But I don't know that I'd feel bad if we didn't have it in.
Okay.
How about do some groundwork of ECIO path?
Yeah, I don't think we should do that either. For the same reason.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. If we have time, and we could well have time, I don't have a good sense for how long these things will take.
I understand what you're saying, Sam. So maybe how about we make that as a stretch goal for Pacific? I mean, if we have the resources and we have the bandwidth, then we go for it. Otherwise, we just drop it, and it's okay to drop it at that point.
I mean, in the sense that we have an ordered list of things we want to work on. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm just pushing back on snapshots specifically because I don't want the goal of Pacific to be a laundry list of features for Crimson. I want it to be speed and quality. And for that, I think there are some core things that are clearly qualitatively different from features. Like RBD as a workload has to be demonstrated to be faster and with lower CPU cost than classic OSD. And I don't think snapshots are required to demonstrate that value. And It's just a lot of work. Like trim isn't an inherently interesting thing. It's just a thing we have to port over from Classic. It's very similar to the work that's being done currently for Scrub. It's just a matter of porting the existing algorithm. And I would say we should leave off Scrub, except that without Scrub, we can't demonstrate that recovery works. That's the only reason to port Scrub over.
Yeah, yeah. All right, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, that's pretty much flexible, I guess. And you guys are the best people to determine what goes and what doesn't. But in general, are there any other items that are not here and should be here, or any other brainstorming that we didn't end up doing last week and should be done now?
What I see here, broadly speaking, is peering, backfill, recovery, Scrub, and CStore, which I think is the correct things to focus on.
Yeah.
And yeah, probably we can have another meeting at your time, in more time friendly to NA, and to figure out what a specific task we can have for new joiner.
Well, so that's kind of what I'm saying. It's not that we can't work on things that aren't in that set. It's that those are the things that I think are important for Pacific. And I think what they have in common is that they're the hard things in the OSD. I don't think that's an accident. It turns out that the core things that we wouldn't have bothered to do the hard things if they weren't in some way important, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. So there are the must-haves that without which
right.
we wouldn't release Pacific. Let
me just finish the thought. Yeah. So for the sort of low-hanging fruit things that people can just get into without knowing very much, I don't know that it's that important what those things are. Like,
I guess
ultimately they're fundamentally unimportant, or else they'd be on the list.
That's true, but I'm
it's
also
good
trying
to have a list. Not that important.
Right. No, I completely understand, but I'm just trying to understand, like, if we were to lower the barrier of entry, or if there were like certain things which are easier to start off with, are there things that are identified by this group or not? Or if it's like, okay, you either know.
I can think of is probably it's not of a very high priority or importance, but it's a missing piece in Crimson and in Messenger. Probably can get your hand dirty for the purpose of getting familiar with Crimson. That's to add the configuration support to the Messenger, because currently Messenger is using a poor man's solution. It's all of the settings are hardwired. I added it in the infra or cleanup to make sure it's well defined. How about that?
Sure.
Yeah, there's a whole category of adapting Ceph ADM and that whole suite of tools to be capable of dealing with Crimson. Mm-hmm. Like, that'll be pretty important by Pacific. In fact, that's actually a Pacific task now that I think about it. And that doesn't require as much deep knowledge of Crimson.
Yeah, I also see other places are some hard coding some configurations in OSDs. So maybe, yeah, that's good.
Cool. Do we just want to use the cleanup column here, or do we want to create a new one just to identify those kind of items?
We'll also need tooling. I suspect that by Pacific we won't have solved the M2N problem, so we'll also want tooling to automatically divvy up a disk into a bunch of different OSDs.
Sam, I think that's a more difficult problem to attack, right? It's
No. What I'm saying is Ceph ADM could automatically take a 1 terabyte disk and divide it into 10 100 gigabyte disks. I'm saying the tooling could just automatically divvy up a disk into a bunch of OSDs. I don't think it's a good answer forever, but I think it's adequate for now.
But it's more like usability issues, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's a matter of teaching an existing tool to just do it. Ceph ADM already has the ability to deal with deploying OSDs and stuff, so it's just a matter of teaching it to do this part too. Usability.
Yes.
And don't knock usability. We'll never be able to teach people to set these things up without those tools. Someone taking notes or no?
I would
Yes, I
so
will try
you
to
said
come up with notes later on and materialize it in the cards in the Trello board.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, you were saying, Ron?
that it's more than tooling. It is good for, it is required for development. Ability to use small machines for development might be helpful for other development.
We have that already. vStart. Is there something wrong with vStart?
I haven't. Probably should try by harder, but I didn't have a lot of success in doing
Well, that's in all of our that's in all of our problems. If you can't get it to work, you need to work out why and file a bug.
Okay, thanks.
Or work out what gap it is you're running into and create a task for that too. That would be fine.
Probably not a gap, but my mistakes, but yes.
Well, that could be a documentation gap. Also fine.
Yeah.
So I'm noting down the work items, and I will in the chat window, and I will send out meeting minutes and materialize it as a card in the Trello board. Anything I'm missing?
I mean, the thing is, none of those are internal to Crimson. I think we should all try to think about what things we could peel off as tasks. It is a good thing to do. Yeah. So, well, we should all try to think of other internals things that we could do, or that we could peel off for someone else to work on. But Neha, I mean, is the goal of a basic implementation of CStore that essentially supports RBD without necessarily snapshots, replicated with support for recovery and backfill, an acceptable goal for Pacific?
No, I think what the priorities that you mentioned earlier are right. We need to have peering, recovery, backfill sorted out first. I think this the snapshot support just came in because probably Josh was thinking in the lines that if we have this, then we can just say that RBD on its own in the replicated scenario would be feature complete. But I understand where you are coming from. So I think this is more a discussion with product and all that downstream stuff that we don't want to get involved right now. But what you said in terms of priority sounds fine to me.
Okay. I'm worried about CStore. I think it's a giant pile of work, and I don't have a good sense for how long it's going to take. That's essentially what I'm worried about.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions?
I think this is a really good discussion that we've started, and I would really encourage everybody in this group to identify those kind of areas if there are things that have not been identified and there are other people who can help with that. We should identify them and like tag them in the Trello in some form. And as Kifu said, we can follow up in a separate meeting as to how we can make that process of introducing other people to Crimson easier and do some sort of, making the learning process easier in general. We know that we have some targets to achieve by Pacific, and whatever we can do as a group, we are willing to do that. That's basically what I tried to communicate in this meeting, I guess.
Yeah. Now, how about that? We can schedule a meeting right after the stand up this tomorrow morning, so it's more friendly to you and Josh and probably Sam. We can
Sure. I mean,
quickly
yeah.
pick up regarding to the status quo of the crimson.
Sounds
For the questions, we
sounds
can
good.
regard that.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
It can be very short.
Yep.
Okay.
Do you have a sense for what time? Sorry, about to go to sleep.
So
No.
Furthermore, I would encourage us to note down the work in progress in the Trello and the next whatever task you come into the mind and log into in the Trello as several cards, so we can have a better idea what's going on and what will happen in the very short term, and better of link it to the PR if there exists any of them. That's it.
How to market working in progress? Because I just see it can only assign people, right?
Yes, I think you can join a card as a member of a card, or you can
So I guess the idea of Trello is that as long as anything is not merged, it doesn't go to the specific merged column, which is to the extreme left. You see the first column, it says Crimson V1 Pacific. As long as you're working on something and it's ongoing, it just stays wherever it is. And once it's merged, you can move that particular card to the first column. So it's tracked as complete.
Yeah. How to differentiate the tasks which is ongoing or not started?
Okay, I get what you mean. So I guess that's
you can link it with the PR or the progress branch. That's the best thing.
Yeah.
The proof that somebody is working on it.
Yeah.
Not merely interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
Any further comments? Questions? Okay. So, see you next week, and have a good day. Have a good night. Talk later. Thank you, guys. Later.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. See you soon. Bye.
See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.